Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of In Pursuit of Black Excellence. I'm going to go ahead and grab Kristin, see if she's here. Well, I'm here. I'm very excited to see you. You can hear my sexy, think I'm getting sick voice. So that's going to be fun.
I'm here
Hello.
too. I'm here too.
The internet lies sometimes. I mean, oftentimes. Almost all the ways, basically. So, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy week, and I'm doing
Yeah,
good. I'm doing good. How about you?
I think I'm getting sick.
Ooh,
And my uterus is not happy. So,
no bueno.
we're going to get through this.
We can do it.
so, um, so this week we're talking about being multi-passionate. Um, multi-potentialite is another word I've seen coined on the internets to describe our particular subset of millennial. I mean, just person in general, but I feel like we're the first generation to really go for all of our things. Like if we're passionate about it, we're willing to invest the time and what little money we have um, to try to realize our different passions and not be pigeonholed into one. So, I guess the first thing is, how does it feel like you've decided that you're working on one thing, and then that oh, hey, don't forget about me of your other passions starts to like what's the word, um knit at you, like
Yeah.
poke your brainses.
Well, before that, let me just say that I'm Kristin Iris.
Oh yeah, we could introduce ourselves. Who
Yeah,
cares?
I'm Kristin Iris, aka the Taino Queen.
I was like, let's dive in. You don't need to know who
You're
I
just like,
am.
right, you don't need to know who we are. We're two brilliant Black women. That's it.
I would listen to me.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah. We've
and
started off so strong already. Like, come on, guys, really.
seriously, we've sold it to you. And I am Lady T, the Black Teena Marie, and thank you for joining us. Also, welcome,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Yes. And
Um,
if you're watching on the replay, or if you're watching live, but if you're watching on the replay, please share this out with your Black brethren or just people.
yeah,
Just
share with
people
the
is cool too.
folks,
Share with the world.
especially
Share
if
it
you're
out.
watching live, but also if you're
Yes.
watching the replay. Just let the folks know what you're doing Fridays. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Just sharing that out. So I was sharing this out here on my iPad. Um, Ooh, how does it feel? So
mm-hmm.
we are people who are into a lot of things. Hey, Sarah. Um, and so I feel like I'm so used to it now. I almost don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever really I don't even remember. I don't know that I ever had like a negative thing about it because I was just into different things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was into film. I was always into story. I've always been into story and writing. Was into film, and then martial arts, and was still into martial arts and into writing books at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think over the years, as I have become really comfortable with who I am and really
Mm-hmm.
gotten to know who I am better, and also work on like those things that were leading me maybe in a direction that wasn't really where I wanted to go,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like what I was pursuing. Now when I'm passionate about something, like it's just it feels good. It doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is a bad thing, or anything like that, because I know that it's coming from me. It's not coming from like, I think sometimes people can feel overwhelmed because they feel like they have to do all these things, or that they're supposed to follow a track. And, maybe it's not your track to go to college and, go and be an accountant or be like an engineer or something. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe you come from a real artsy family and they're like, you supposed to be singing. And you're like, but I just want to put computers together. Like, you don't know. So I think it can be especially hard if you feel like the things pulling at you are things that aren't necessarily what you want, and then they're overcrowding the things you really do want. So now when something's kind of nagging, nagging is a bad word, poking at me, when something's poking at me and I'm you know, like doing something else or focus somewhere else, there is a little bit of like, oh crap, I gotta switch, but I can't switch right now. But it's just lets me know like, hey, this other thing you're passionate about, you're not giving it the attention it needs. Like right now, I'm getting a lot of pokes from my stories, from both my novel and my screenplay. And they're
Okay.
both poking at me. And when even though my screenplay is my current project, which I've put on hold until I come back from shooting this film, even though that's my current project and what I've committed to myself this year, that I am getting poked from my novel that I was working on last year. To me, I recognize this. I already know that this is a sign that I'm not doing enough writing. I'm not doing enough of my own creativity. And I'm doing that by choice, but it's like when old novels start poking at me, I shouldn't say old, but when novel projects that I've had for years are poking at me and they're not even what I'm working on, it's like your creative juices are wanting to operate in this way. And so it's like, hey, let's get back to this. So it's a matter of like making time or not making time, prioritizing and managing your time.
Yeah, I think that for me, I have been made to feel bad about it um, in various ways, like very negative messaging around, well, why can't you just do one thing?
Yeah.
Uh, and they say can't, but they mean why won't you? Because actually, I can't just do one thing. Like unless one thing is going to incorporate all of the things I'm passionate about, then I just can't do one thing. Um, but as I've gotten older and once again gotten comfortable, you know, with myself and pushing past the idea that maybe I am just flighty, maybe I am just flaky, because so many people seem content to do one thing. But then the one thing that people do is go to a job they hate and then come home and sit on the couch. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Or at best have lukewarm feelings about.
yeah. Or like the one thing is the gym after work. And I'm like, cool, but I need to be creating. And the more and more I've gotten, like I've also had lots of negative talk about speaking my voice and expressing myself. So part of me feels like, am I being like masturbatory? Like, who needs to hear what you have to say? But over the course of my life, there's always been a person or a group of people who have relied on my voice. No matter what other people have said to me about it, it was like if there was some injustice, like the teacher was wrong, everybody was like, Jeanette, you should say it. So being always put in that position, it made me doubt the necessity to speak my voice, which, largely is what my passions are, doing theater and singing all through school, and writing and just like very, very expressive things. And even with bartending, when you create your own cocktail, you are still expressing the things that are delightful to you and you're sharing that with other people. Um, so it's been kind of a journey that I'm still on about being fully comfortable in being multi-passionate about things. Um, but I think that's also, I struggle with time management. So that kind of reinforces some of the negative things that I've heard around me being unable to just pick a thing and stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's also a feeling of like when I when I project hop is like, and I've heard this from other people, and I question myself just to make sure I'm not doing it, but I've heard it from other people where they're like, oh, I project hop because when I start getting like really close in one area, they skip to the next thing so that they don't really have to execute it.
That's real. That's very real.
Yeah. And so I'm not, I haven't necessarily felt like that myself. Like mostly I feel like crap, I haven't had the time or the resources to be able to finish this or to be able to set aside the time. But it's a little bit like with my writing is like that. Like I've been writing for years. And I'll have like a project and I'll write, and then I'll be like, okay, now I need to go back and rewrite. Like sometimes, as you know, as you've been there for these fun experiences, sometimes a complete rewrite, like let me toss this whole novel out the window and start from
Ooh.
scratch, and that's that's always rough. And you have been there for some of those times where you had to tell me, like, yeah, girl, sorry, you gotta
You
throw
got
this whole thing out.
you gotta throw the whole baby
um,
away. Whole
yeah, throw the
baby.
whole, you guys, 699 pages in the first draft, double space, but still, it was a really, really long first draft. So, for me, because I have jumped from one writing project to another, it is like, well, am I just like afraid to finish it? Because people who don't really know what's going on with my novel will be like, well, you know, at what point is it going to be done? You just have to execute. I'm like, no, I have to rewrite this. Like, this is a tome. I have to rewrite this entire like epic fantasy novel that is like the
Yeah.
first book of a series. So no, it's not ready. It's like actually not even close.
Because
You know,
continuity is important. So like
yes,
it's the first
exactly.
book up, like it's going to set up subsequent books. Like it's important to have your shit together all in one place. Like
Yes. Yes. And you know that like with that series, I started writing book two, and book two is another epic, like long novel. And then I got back to book one. It was like, man, I'm gonna change all this stuff from book one. I'm like, oh fuck. I
yeah.
gotta change all this stuff from book one and book two.
Hmm.
So part of my brain was like, ooh, that's big to tackle. Let's go to a different writing project. Like, and not in a fear. It's just after working on it for like I've been working on this series for so long. Like
Yeah.
over 10 years. I think it's like 12 years now. 13 years. You know, so it's
This is a
like
whole
when it
child.
yeah, it's a teenager now, but like an underdeveloped teenager. And so for me to like go back into that project, like that's a lot of time and energy that not that I don't have, but it's like, let me use my writing skills and my writing creativity in a different project in a different way so that I can move away from this super epic, like heavy project and actually get that creativity going again instead of having like this big thing that's weighing on me. So it's like, and because I had other ideas, it was like, all right, you know, I've been working on this for a long time. Let's step away and do something else. But it does kind of make that pose that question of like, am I just running away from what I'm doing, or do I like really just feel drawn in this direction or something like that?
Yeah. I feel like, I'm basically trying to figure out like in 2019 how to merge my two kind of leading passions right now. I guess that's a good way to think of them, leading passions.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I miss being on stage. I want to get back into the theater, but like right now, it's not calling to me. So that's tight because I don't have time to figure it out. But like having important conversations, here we are having this show. Like I'm very passionate about dialogue and people connecting about ideas, and also bartending. So it's like I've been not. I felt like I was spinning my wheels before, but I feel like the more I give myself permission to say that these two things can coexist in a way that will be healthy for me, instead of like I don't feel like I'm trying to jam a square peg into a round hole about it. But before it was just like, well, how do you put these things together? And there are other people having important conversations in the hospitality space, like what's supposed to be different about you, and it's just realizing that there's just so much negative bullshit wrapped around even just doing the thing. It doesn't even matter which thing it is, but especially when you're trying to combine the two, there's so much imposter syndrome around, like I've never thrown a pop-up. So now I have to learn how to throw a pop-up. So it means approaching brands for sponsorship and, logistical things. So that's a stretch. And then, facilitating conversation. There's all this stuff in your head about, well, do you even know enough to do this about this particular topic, and blah, 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 blah. So, there's each individual thing's got its negativity wrapped around it, and then trying to merge two things that are passionate about that on the surface don't necessarily go together. But when you think about it, the best conversations you have are over food and drinks.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where you're just like, but you got to give yourself permission for your brain to chill out and just let you have your vision and have your dream be whatever your dream is. So
yeah. Yeah, I like that though, like the giving permission part. And I think because we do get a lot of messages as just like Black people and Black women about what we're allowed to do and how we're allowed to do it, like this, let's stretch ourselves super thin, and you're not really allowed to ask for help, and you can't get support, and if you get support, you're weak. You gotta be strong Black woman, like, like all these like messages that when we live into that, we actually like slow ourselves down. When we live into that, we actually cut our capacity to really explore and bring all of our different passions or multiple of our passions into the world. And so when we actually start to break through like some of those ideas and are just like, well, what is it that I really want to create? Like, what is it that I really want to do? And also, who can I ask to help me with this? How can I get help where I need it? Like, where do I need help? I can't do all of it. How can I get that help, to actually take those steps? And part of that is challenging when you're breaking out of what society has said you're allowed to do, because just the approaching people can feel like, I'm asking you something that society doesn't approve of, and I don't really know how you're going to respond, and how many people are going to respond negatively to me, and like all those things. And then we're just like, well, I'll just do it myself.
Man, the fear of failure is wrapped up, like, I feel like for me it shows up in so many different ways. Like, I recently approached somebody who does events, like, who just put on a big event, and I was like, hey, can I pick your brain for a couple minutes? I want to do this pop-up. Just like, you feel like you have to have everything together, but it's like, I'm approaching you because I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not sure, the steps to go in. So you have to be like, you have to remain humble, as in like, approach this person in honesty. Like, I am coming to you to get a better understanding of this thing that I'm trying to do, that I want to do, instead of like, oh no, yeah, no, I thought about that. Like, it's blah, blah, blah. Just be like, hey, this is what I do know. This is what I'm unsure about. Here's an idea that I have. And just being able to receive that, this is where you need to flesh your idea out more before you approach somebody else. Or this is how you approach somebody else. But that initial message is like, I don't want this person to think, that I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm incapable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then being able to ask, like, not just rely on one person, being able to take what you got from that conversation and then apply that to somebody else. Or maybe you need to ask somebody else and then pool that together, and then you have something much more firm. But like, being afraid to reach out to somebody, especially is coupled with the like, oh, I reached out to this person, I put myself out there, and they're expecting something from me now. And what if it doesn't go the way
Oh no, I gotta deliver.
Yeah. It's just like, you want to remain. And I feel like a lot of spaces, like Issa Rae spoke to this, about how people always want to work with a person above them, but they're never trying to work with people on your similar level, which is like, you pooling your resources, y'all putting each other on, you're supporting each other. Like, it's better to just come up together. And for me right now, like, like, this undertaking is a solo project, but I was thinking of like, other bartenders that I wanted to work with, and I have somebody who is much more well known in the community and all of that stuff. So when I was thinking about the other spots, I'm like, I want to think about somebody who's trying to be, you know, good at this career as well, like who is into it for the long haul, who loves the hospitality and spirits industry, because they're not necessarily the same, but also reaching out to them, because you know people are always looking for you to have everything together. It's like, actually, I need you to be a part of this thing that I'm trying to do. Like, do you want to be a part of this thing? Not here, this is what I have, you know, we gonna do X, Y, and Z at blah 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 time. Like being able to, like, I want to collaborate with you. Like, it's my idea, so I'm in charge. It's my baby, but I want to collaborate with you. Like, I don't have everything situated, and just be. I feel like the more you can be honest about that, the easier it is to work with people, or just to go for the thing, because you have to once again get out of your head and give yourself permission. It's okay to not know everything. It's your first one, especially, but it's like this expectation that you can't ask for help, that you're supposed to figure it out on your own. And I'm like, yes, you're supposed to figure it out on your own, but if you have a network of information, that is figuring it out. But like,
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know that I would say you have to figure it out on your own. Like, you have to do it somewhat on your own, or like you have to lead the charge.
mm-hmm.
But like, we actually should be more in unity and community and collective action, which is something I'm working on because I like to isolate myself.
Yeah, and I think especially in the conversation or the context of being multi-passionate, having more people and more eyes on a thing frees you up to pursue your other passions. Or even if you are combining things, like with this pop-up that I'm thinking about, like I eventually wanted to roll into like a series of events, where we're having conversations about important things that are not even necessarily focused in hospitality or the industry, um, but it gives you the opportunity to focus on a different aspect of it, or like have you got other passionate people working on this passion project with you. If you need to step away and check in with your other passion project, you have so much more mental and emotional space, because you have help, you have other collaborators,
Yes.
um
Yes.
and not somebody who's expecting you to come up with all the results on your own. So that, like, it just reduces the stress that you put on yourself, and that, because everybody's, especially
Yeah.
when you set correct expectations, everybody knows where you're at, so where the project is and how they can help. And most people are just
Yes.
very excited to help, but you're in your head about it. You're like, oh, but I don't know
Yeah.
this. I don't have this
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. And
So,
I mean, when you collaborate and you get that help, um and other people who are working towards a common goal, it, like you said, it basically gives you more bandwidth for other things.
mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with, like, if you have a business, or delegating tasks that are not really your zone of genius. Like, people who, if they have the resources, who are like, you know what, I am going to pay someone to come once a week to, clean up my place a little bit, because that's actually going to give me the space and time that I need to do this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
There we go, or in business, like, oh, okay, I'm going to hire a VA because I'd love for someone to take care of these administrative tasks. Or like, for me, like, it'd be great to have someone to help produce the podcast and edit it and get it up there and get the promo material together.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do that myself. Is that my zone of genius? Not exactly. Like, I am actually better use somewhere else. So if I could bring someone in to do those things, and that's not exactly a collaboration, it's the getting help part. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can bring someone in to do those things, it gives you more space in your head to do other things. If you can bring people in to collectively work on a project, if you have that kind of project, it gives you the bandwidth to go and check in with your other projects, pursue something else, talk to a friend, catch up, say hello, give some
Mm-hmm.
attention to the other areas of your life, have like a really long masturbation session.
Self-love,
Black
y'all.
pleasure, black pleasure matters.
I feel like, especially in this conversation, time management is a big piece. and understanding the thing that you're trying to accomplish. Um, and when we think about passions, I think because I'm largely trying to make my money doing things that I'm passionate about. So,
Same.
right. So being multi passionate, and then you start to factor in like income, because I have realized that at the end of the day, the best boss for me to work for is myself. Because especially when we get into conversations about like professionalism and all of these things that are white patriarchal ideas of how you're supposed to show up. Like, I can't work in fine dining with a head wrap.
Nope.
Fine dining is not trying to hear about how the idea of fine dining is wrapped up in a whole bunch of racist, sexist, just situations. They just know that, hey, if you want to serve here, if you want to bartend here, you have to adhere to the dress code. And the dress code does not include any of your cultural markings, girl, and we don't care. Um, so trying to monetize things that I'm passionate about um, has an extra layer of spookiness, I guess, and like also not wanting to ask for help because now it's a baby. Like, you're really protective of it because you're hoping it blossoms into a paycheck.
Yes. You're like, come on, I'm rooting for you. We need a win.
We need some money.
That's like me right now with my program. I'm like, come on, I'll put this thing out there.
But yeah, I feel like the time management piece is because not all of us have, executive function where we can just in our brains break down things into smaller tasks. I'm speaking to me and my other ADD, ADHD folks out there in the world. Because people have this idea of why don't you just, which is ableist, but people like that's how society is set up. So everybody assumes
it's also a little bit in this context. It's also a little bit classist, but we can get to that in a second.
Yes. Especially when you present as intelligent in a way that people understand intelligence, you should be able to. But it's not about how smart you are. It's about does your brain literally allow you to do these things? And for people like me, the answer is no, or in very specific ways. And nobody wants to make space for the things and the ways that you need it to be done because everybody wants you to do it like they do. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, having to deal with this makes me much more lax or just easy going about like, I don't give a fuck how you get to 6. If it's 5 + 1, 3 + 3, 4 + 2, as long as you get to 6, boo. Like, I don't care how you get there. But the average person is not capable of doing that, it feels like. Or not even capable. They don't
think about it. They don't think about it.
And when you're being, you're pursuing your passions and you struggle with something like time management, there's an extra layer of concern of reaching out for help and having people be a part of it. Because they're looking at you like, well, why can't you so and so? And you're like, because I can't. Like, just trust me on this. Like, if I was good at this, I wouldn't have asked you. It wouldn't be necessary. We wouldn't be talking about this at all. But not having executive function, I have to be very, I'm learning because I'm accepting this about myself and not seeing it as a failing, just seeing it as, this is just a part of you and you just got to figure it out, and that's fine. Having a big thing broken down into lists and checklists and like not being freaked out by deadlines, that has been a huge part of being able to balance multiple things or getting to a place where I can balance multiple things. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting
working
there.
on it. Working on it. Yeah. Now, in terms of like the time management, the piece about it that I said is a little bit classist is like when people are like, well, you've got this, I fucking hate this quote. I hate it so much. You've got the same 24 hours a day as Beyonce. Okay, do I have a full-time staff like Beyonce? No, I don't. So stop imposing the same expectations on regular people that like you're, you know, as far as like the standard of like Oprah or somebody else. Oprah's got people, okay? Beyonce has people to do things. Like other people even have the resources to hire a VA. Not everybody has those resources. And when we say things like that, what we're actually shaming people for is not having the resources to get the help that other people can afford to have.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget about people who come from different experiences. Even people, so like, you know, entrepreneur, we're like entrepreneurs, but
Mm-hmm.
people who even go, like, let's say they travel to a job, okay? You take CTA or transit, wherever you are, transit to your job. Your transit takes you an hour, where it would take 15 minutes if you were in a car, but you don't have a car. So you're going an hour there, you're going an hour back. Cool. That is an hour and a half less time in your day that you have than somebody who's in equal everything else, but they got a car.
Mm-hmm.
That's
The time
time.
resource is huge that people don't
Yes.
understand.
You know, and so it is dismissive of different people's economic status to say, to pit them up against like people like Beyonce or Oprah. You've had the same I have the same 24 hours a day as I have is what I've got. Okay. And I am working with it. So get off my areola.
And for me, I'm a person that is inspired by the idea that you have the same 24 hours as Beyonce, because I am cognizant that she's got a staff of people, like not an assistant, a gang of motherfuckers who
A
are making
staff.
sure that when she shows up, that she is perfectly coiffed and styled, and her makeup is just on point. Her children's have nanny. Like I get, like I get it, but to me, it's inspiring to be like, oh, you have the same 24 hours as Beyonce. I'm like, you're right. She it's aspirational for me. I'm not beating myself up about it because I am very, very aware of like even her having a husband, even if she wasn't affluent, just
Oof.
having another person in your house to help you take care of your children, or you know, you don't have to work as much because you got two incomes. Like there's so many resources that people don't think about. Or if you don't have children, you know, you have supposedly extra money, and extra time that's just yours that you can, you know, dedicate wherever. But 100% the idea that, because it goes back to that executive function thing, like we're assuming that with the same 24 hours that everybody is perfectly aligned, that everybody has the exact same brain composition, the exact same access to the exact same amount of information, that like it's just not true.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it gets into that like people think that they're just temporarily embarrassed millionaires. So we need to believe that we have the same 24 hours as Beyonce.
Yeah.
You don't. Like with a team of people, what's 24 hours now becomes 72 or, you
Yes,
know,
exactly.
128 hours in a 24
Yes.
hour period.
Yeah, I'm like, so she don't really got 24 hours. She actually has like
A whole bunch more.
a hundred and
Mm-hmm.
something hours. And you know, she could probably take a nap with some of those hours because she has people who got hours
Yeah, it looks
because
like it's
their
not to say
sole
that she's
job
not
is
busy.
working for Beyonce.
Yeah, like she's an employer.
No, she
Like
is like I'm sure she's extremely busy, but like, you know, I would be like, let me take a nap.
she don't
Let me
have
just
time to
take a nap.
cook. Like she has time. She can go vegan because she doesn't have to go grocery shopping. She doesn't have
Is
to do
she
the
vegan?
cooking. Yeah, her and Hove.
Whoa, mind blown. I don't know why.
But yeah,
I like my meats. I'm good.
but it's just like, you
But
know,
yeah, it's like
having
she
Hello
doesn't have to
Fresh
go
for a
grocery
week
shopping.
has
Yeah.
been a game changer. It's like there is food in here for the two of us. We are fine for
Yeah.
the week. If you're just tired this week and don't want to go to the grocery store, having that delivered. But you know, I got a free
Yes.
credit from a friend. Like I don't have the money for it. You know, that's a convenience
Yeah,
of
the delivery
time.
is that's real
Whew.
convenient because it's like cool. Somebody else is gonna go get my groceries, and I can keep working on I keep
Yep.
working on the sales page, or I can do a client call right now. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm in. Please keep sending food
I
to my
can
house.
spend an hour working on my script instead. Or like maybe you need to decompress and you want to spend 30 minutes watching Blackish. That's cool too.
Or, 2 hours.
Or like, a day. I mean, I'm not saying I've done that.
Okay, so I think that gets us to the next part of figuring it out is with the limited amount of time, how do you balance multiple passions?
Whew. So
And I say
I'm in a
balance meaning it's not perfectly level all the time. It is a
yeah, it's not even.
teeter-totter
It's got
situation.
that your different projects have the right amount of time and energy that they need. Like I don't need to split my day 3 ways between working on my script, working on my business, and working in film production. Like some days I'm spending all day, like the other day, I think it was Tuesday. It was Monday. Monday, I spent pretty
Mon
much all
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Monday, I pretty much spent all day like looking after I got back from the hospital, looking through like people's casting submissions for this film and their self tapes and their reels and things like that. Like that's what I spent most of the day doing instead of like splitting it up. When it comes to time management, that's one of the things that actually sucks up a lot of our time is the constant switching from one thing to the other. Like if I have to switch from this to this to this to this, it actually takes your brain time to make that switch. And the more you do it, the more time you actually take switching and the less time you have to do. So if you can batch your, and not everybody can, because some people, have crazy schedules or they work certain hours, but if you can batch your activities or your tasks together, like if you're writing an email series, which I have not done in a long time actually. But if you're writing an email series or maybe you're making like several videos, like make the videos on one day instead of like, okay, I'm going to make this video and then I'll make another video tomorrow. And then I'll make another video on Thursday, batching your activities together because it keeps you in the same mindset of doing that. It's like, okay, I'm making a video. I'm recording this video. I'm recording this video. And then you get into a flow of it and your brain like your brain waves shift into like a certain flow and you can actually get more done with the time that you have. Now, not you can't always do that. But that's one of the ways that I like to operate. It's like if I could spend this day doing these things for this project, let me do it. And then like today I'm going to be doing some more casting. I'm going to be looking through more casting submissions, but not like constantly jumping back and forth. And I think also having a list, like as you're doing something, because I've got so many different projects right now, if I can like write down, like while I'm doing something, write down like, oh, I need to do this, writing it down so that I don't have to worry about remembering it, instead of now I'm doing this, but I'm also in part of my brain trying to remember trying to figure out how I'm going to remember this other thing. Write it down. Leave yourself a voice note, make yourself a phone note, text yourself, whatever. But like, if you write it down, then you can actually just like leave it. Cool. That's out of my head. It's on paper. And then get back to what you're doing. I know sometimes it helps.
As a person who is in the process of learning this, so, don't think I have all the answers, y'all, because I do not, about anything. But I'm definitely in the figuring it out, like, as a person who is, I'm not going to say adverse to routines, but they don't come naturally to me. And being bored is something I have a thing about adults who are bored. I'm like, there's so much to see and do in the world. How are you possibly bored?
Yeah, you do not respond well to being bored. You're just like, I'm so bored. What am I going to do?
I'm like, this shit sucks.
Like, I gotta go do something.
Which is mostly a pro, but there's the con where you just can't like chill out. But realizing that I need to know what I'm doing for the day. Like I need to know what this day looks, even if it's not blocked out into any particular amount of time or a start time and an end time, I realized that one of the triggers to my anxiety, because I have these stories in my head around being a procrastinator, being lazy, all of these things, that it's mostly because there's so much in my brain, I don't know where to start. And then because nothing has been prioritized, you could start any of these things. They all need your attention, and it just, you get into your head about, am I picking the right activity to do? But if I
That's a
take,
good one.
it's man, and getting into the habit of before bed setting it up for the next day, so it just kind of flows, because then you can take stock of the day that you've had, journaling if you need to, or if it's like in your plan. Like, that's why I'm so happy about this new generational planners that are just not, it's not just a day and a little square. It's like, what are you working on this week? And then like the planners
Yep.
actually help you break it down, because
Yeah,
you
that's
just
on
looking
my
at
list.
this big ass goal of like, okay, like I'm looking for work. So what's the start of that? Having a resume. So instead of trying to email myself jobs from Craigslist, or, I broke it down. I'm like, okay, I know I got to work on my resume. I'm looking for jobs in a particular area, and I know people. So let me start scheduling time to talk to people. So it's not just this big like umbrella task of find a job. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what are the steps? And what can I also, considering my anxiety and my ADHD, like what can I reasonably accomplish, and not try to overload myself or talk myself into thinking that I need to be doing more. Like, you need to be working on this task, period. Full. Like, that's what you need to be doing. How much
Yes.
you can or cannot do, I'm still in the process of learning how to not make that a judgment about myself and my ability to work and how my brain works. Like, all of these
That's
negative
a hard one.
emotions
Yeah.
that like take up space. Like you said, it's just like switching from project to project. It's like, you have to be, I'm like really turning into that auntie, like, you got to protect your energy, baby. Um, but like, it is a flow of energy. Like, when you have a good productive day, your relationships feel better, with yourself and with other people. But when you have a day where you feel like you just haven't got anything accomplished, that's when you want to eat shit and sit on a couch and just like deep throat a pizza, and then follow that up with some ice cream, because you just don't feel as good. Like, so much energy has been sucked out of you. You're just exhausted at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting into the habit of setting my intentions for the day, um, is helpful, because I notice a difference between when I do and when I don't do it. And managing your to-do list of like 3 to 5 things. Don't write
Yes.
everything that you need to do. Take stock of like what's more time sensitive than the other thing, and then plan your tasks from there.
Yes. Yes. Now, on the subject of prioritizing, I think it's also important not just prioritizing the task, but prioritizing your projects, like
Mm-hmm.
your areas of your life, like where. So if you're someone who you have this like job that maybe you're not so fond of. No, let's say you're part of like a club or a community,
Okay.
and you're just like, there's something about this place that's draining, but like I've committed myself to like being a part of it, and I've committed myself to like bettering this community. And then you've also got these other two projects that you really care about. You might, because people are relying on you, be giving all this time and energy to this
Ooh,
community that
say
you're kind of
that.
like about, or that you're like, I like it, but there's something toxic about this here. You might be giving all this time and energy to that, when where you actually want to be focusing is on these other two projects, or like your business, or this event that you're going to run, or school, like it could be any number of things. But we have to you have to get really clear about what are the things that are really important to me. Where do I want to be spending my energy? Two separate questions. What's really important to me? Where do I want to be spending my energy? And what is actually going to get me in a better place to do what's important to me and spend my energy where I want to?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's very
that,
real.
and when you focus on that, or when you prioritize that and do it based on what you want and not where maybe you've overstretched yourself or where other people are expecting you to be, then
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really start making moves. Because if you're like, okay, well, people are relying on me and they're expecting me to show up for this community, but I don't really want to, you're not really showing up as your best. And because you're
Yes.
depleting your energy, you're not showing up as your best in your other areas. If you were to prioritize and be like, you know what, I actually really, really want to focus on making my music, so I'm really going to focus on that. And I'm also really going to focus on doing well in this job that I do kind of like, or maybe really like. I'm going to focus on that too, because that's going to give me the resources to do my music. And I'm going to pull back from the community, and maybe I'll only help out there like once every 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Then you're showing up better in the things you really want to be doing. And you're not showing up as like an energy suck for the things that maybe you less want to show up to be doing, or less want to put your energy into. You know, you're giving it the appropriate amount, and you're focusing your time and energy and resources and creative power where it actually needs to be going.
I feel that my friend Kate is going back to school. She not yet, but she put a status up and was like, "Hey, going back to school, so I'm gonna start. Like I'm not abandoning you. I have to focus on this thing." And I remember seeing that and being like, I really appreciate her taking the time to say that, because there's a lot of people who are like, well, you don't owe people anything. And I'm like, on the one hand, it's kind of a yes or no. If saying something to people is going to hold you back, then don't do the thing. But letting people know, hey, I'm going to be focusing my energy on this thing, um, sets people's expectations and gives you, once again, the space in the room that you're not worried about it anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it's not, well, I'm not a part of this community in the way that I was. It's like, no, I'm just shifting my energy and my priority to this thing that, you know, when people go back to school, ultimately, like you said, it's about getting the resource. Like I need the money, or I need a job that's going to allow the time and the money for me to do and pursue these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I thought, I remember saying that and being like, cool, great. I know if she don't get back to me right away, it's not, because you also internalize that, like, well, what did I do? Like, are we okay?
Yeah.
Don't have to do any of that. Like, she's in school and I could just send her encouraging messages. Like, she also gave me a
Yeah.
better way to be able
To
to show
support
up and
her.
support her and be like, hey, hope studying's going well. Like, I won't be here, but like maybe I can grub her some food when I have some, just like be there for her. And once again, knowing what happens when you kind of get into your thing, having somebody send you food,
Yeah.
like, is an amazing blessing. Like, just if you have the resources, just send a friend, pick one at random, or somebody who could particularly use the help, just send them a meal. Just cash out somebody some money for some coffee or something. Just like, if you can just, it changes the course of somebody's day, just being like, one less thing on my plate.
Yes. And a lot more things on my plate.
Yes, a lot more Thai food,
Yeah.
always.
Now, here's the thing about like the whole like you don't owe anyone an explanation. It's like you said, it's true to a point, because you also have to respect the agreements that you have with the people you're in relationship with.
Yes.
So if you have like, whether it is a spoken or like it has just been a developed agreement with people, or with someone that's like, oh, I'm going to show up in this way and I'm going to be accessible in this way, and that's
Mm-hmm.
changing, you do have a responsibility to say something to change the agreement, and like you said, set the expectation that things are going to be a little bit different. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not just for them, that's also to honor yourself and your boundaries, because it sets a clear, it clarifies what the boundaries are around your time and your energy and your availability, so
Mm-hmm.
that somebody isn't pressing them, or if they are pressing them, you're not just feeling overstretched and then you blow up in their face. You can just be like, hey, remember I talked about, like, I told you about this, that I'm going to be busy doing these things, so this is when I'll be available and how often I'll be available. So I think it just creates, like, it's just better communication for your relationships. Now, certain people you don't actually owe an explanation to.
Yeah.
If there are certain people, some people are just going to feel entitled to your time, and you're just like, we don't go together.
Whew, you're not paying none of my bills and you're not fucking me.
Like,
I don't
what?
understand why you think that I owe
We,
you anything.
yeah, we don't go together, you know. Now, something that you said earlier, actually, how we open it is like when things are coming at you. Um, while I usually feel okay when the different things are pulling at me to be like, give me attention, no, give me attention, and it's like, oh, you know, and that's internal. What does end up, you know, how you mentioned how people's expectations of you, how
Mm-hmm.
that gives you a little bit of anxiety. For me, it's like when people check on like certain projects that like I haven't moved forward because I switched projects. Every time I'm just okay. So so there's someone that I know. I mean, she's more of an acquaintance, I guess, but like an old like martial arts person. And so we don't see each other very often. It's like every few months when we're like at an event or someone's party, and like she'll always be like, for years and years when I was working my fantasy novel, she'd be like, how's your book coming along? It's science fiction, right? And I'm like, it's fantasy. And then when I switched to science fiction, she's like, how's your book coming along? It's poetry, right? And I'm like, actually it's science fiction this time. And so she's like always getting it wrong, and it's like hilarious. Like she's, you know, which is fine. It's not like it's her responsibility to know what I'm working on. But every
Right.
time she does, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want to have to explain how I haven't finished the book, you know, or I don't want to have to explain how I switched projects. And it gives me this feeling of like, it's sort of this internalized conditioning of, oh, is this person going to think I'm a failure? And it's like,
Uh,
even though I am at a place where I'm like, I don't give a shit what most people think, it's still like that auto response in your body that's just like, do I have to explain this, how I switch projects and blah, blah, blah? And am I explaining it so that they know what's going on because they just asked about it? Or am I explaining it because I don't want to look like a failure? And I don't want to look like I just hopped projects because I
yes.
can't finish anything. I'm not a real writer. Like, you know.
That is so real. Like, what sticks out in my mind, and people don't necessarily have a tone when they say this, but it's a tone built in. Like, I just can't keep up with you.
Oh, yeah, no, that's got a tone.
And you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And
What is there to keep up with, and why do you have to? Like,
hey, why do you have to?
why are you?
Because it's so people want to be able to pigeonhole you. They want to say Kristin is a writer, period.
Or
They
Kristin
don't,
is a yoga teacher.
right, like they don't.
And I'm like,
And whenever you switch gears, people feel like, because you know there's a certain thing where you feel responsible for the information that you have, and then you get new information. If people don't want to integrate new information, they just want
yes.
to keep
They want to be able to
this
keep relating to
outdated
you.
idea of
Yeah. They
you,
want to
because
keep
then they,
relating to you in the
yeah,
same way.
because like, oh no, I understand what you do, and you're like, actually I'm not doing that anymore, and then they're just like, what?
Yeah.
And because they're still doing the same shit that they've been doing since '96. Like,
Yeah, I still get people who like in the fall, someone was like, "Oh, how is it teaching yoga?" I'm like, "Girl, I haven't been teaching yoga for a year and a half. Like,
mm-hmm.
haven't taught a class, I don't know."
And you know
And
the
they're like,
difference between
"Really?
those
Oh my
people
God,
who,
what are you doing now?" And I'm like,
exactly,
"My business that I've been doing, and also working at this film production. You know, like but
there's a
people
difference
do. They
between
want to
people
be
who
able
are
to like,
genuinely interested in what you're doing and the people who just
yeah,
want to be able to say that they know. Like, you're
yeah,
a yoga teacher. That's what I know about you. I know that you do yoga. And it's like, well, I haven't in some time. And then you say, like, oh, I've been working on my business. It's like, but while you were a yoga teacher, you were still working on a business.
yes,
So it's not even like you switch gears. It's just one thing that was happening at that time is no longer happening. But there are those people who are like, oh, I value you. I want to know what you're up to. And
yeah.
there are those motherfuckers who don't actually care.
Yeah, and I
Like,
mean, it's something like if you haven't seen someone in a long time, then like, you know,
yeah,
you guys are catching up, which is what happened in the fall. I was just like, "Ooh, let's catch you up, honey. Let me tell you what's
let's
going
catch you
on."
up.
You know, but it's that idea of like, oh well, like I can't keep up with you, or I wanna. This changes my idea of you, which is not what anyone says out
Right.
loud. It's what gets said in the back of their mind. Is like, this changes my idea of you, and like I actually don't even want to handle that right now. So how are you doing over here? And they start talking to somebody else.
Yeah. And it's like, I can't keep up with you also has the subtext of you always doing something, you know, you never finish it, you never follow through. And it's just like, no, I'm not content to keep doing shit that doesn't work for me. So that includes, actually, if you haven't downloaded the Pattern app and you want your life read, just go ahead and get it. But like, that's something that it says in the Pattern app about me. It's just like, you are not willing to settle, so you'll have a lot of false starts. And it's just like, for people,
Mm-hmm.
false starts equal failure. Like, we're starting to have more honest conversations around failure and its necessity to success. But like, everything that you try is not supposed to work out,
No.
you know? And if it doesn't, maybe it's not even that it didn't work out. It didn't work out now. Like, I've circled back around to ideas and be like, fuck, if I'd have just kept up with this 4 years ago, it was like, but 4 years ago wasn't the time for it. You didn't know this, or it wasn't about what you didn't know. You didn't have the space for it. What you were supposed to be doing is getting more centered in who you are. So even if your knowledge base hasn't necessarily changed, it was about getting more clear on who you are and what you need and what you are working towards in your life. You know, what's your purpose on this planet? And then that idea comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it morphs into something that is more congruent with where you are now, or maybe it's that same thing, and now all of a sudden the clouds have parted, and you know, there's clarity around it, where there was whatever, you know, self-doubt or lack of resources or lack of confidence that was shrouding it, and you just felt like you were spinning your wheels. But now, because you took time away from it, you pursued other things, you can come back and be like, oh, this is what I was really hoping to do with this.
Yes.
But people
Or
don't
now
make
you're in
space
a
for that.
position. Yeah, now you're in a
Yeah.
position. So here's the thing. That's actually what happened with my novel, which my first one in that epic fantasy series that I haven't come back to because I'm working on other projects is like, I mean, I started that, God, what was I, like 20, 21
Yeah.
maybe? I think I was 20 when I started, when I first got that idea. And now I am a healthy, hefty 33 bitches. And so, you know, it's been a long time, but like, one of the reasons why now, the last time I was like, ooh, I need to go back and rewrite this, is because my entire perspective, pretty much my
Pretty
entire
much.
perspective has changed. Like, when I first started that one, that was before I found Octavia Butler, who opened me up to the fact that I can actually write Black characters, or characters who look like me, on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And so my main character is white, like super white, super lily white, like moon white skin. Okay. Like whiter than white people whites. And, and you know, like 8-10 years later, I'm looking at this like, I want to change all of this because I want to say more about what's going on in our society through the lens of this fantasy series, which I was already doing. Like, that's actually what I've done with all of my writing. But
Mm-hmm.
now I wanted to be more intentional about it, because now I was like more aware. I had a deeper understanding of systemic racism and white supremacy and things like that. So a few years ago, when I'm coming to this understanding in my own world and seeing what's happening, now I can be more intentional about what I put on the page in that novel, and reflecting it in literally a completely different world, a completely different made up world in a different time. And I can reflect those things that we deal with in an intentional way. I wouldn't have been able to do that shit at 20.
Mm-mm.
Oh
You
my
didn't even
God.
have to let
No,
down John Cena, but you didn't
didn't
have
like, had not downloaded the information
exactly.
yet. You
Yeah,
know? And so
that's
now I'm in a
real.
place where I can do more with it, where I can do more with my writing in general. Like, I'm so much more intentional about everything that I do in my life, and
Yeah.
all of the projects that I take on. I'm so much more intentional about it.
Yeah, that's real. I feel like that we talk about it, and of course people who are in their 40s and 50s are like, wait till you fucking get here, 67, wait till you get here. But like, there is some magic about being on the other side of 30. Like, 30 can be a little shaky. Like, 30 still, like, you feel
It's
it,
a
you feel it,
landmark. It's
you
a
feel it
landmark.
shift. But like, on the other side of it, I think that's also why embracing being multi-passionate has just been like, you motherfuckers don't have to worry about where my money comes from. At the end of the day, when rent is due, they don't care where it came from. I mean, hopefully you're not trafficking drugs in the spot that you rent or own, preferably.
I
But
like how you clarified. It's not about the trafficking drugs. It's about where you're
about
trafficking
where you're
them.
trafficking drugs. Um, but and the type of drugs you're trafficking. Be
Yeah,
responsible,
that's
guys.
important. Be
Um,
responsible.
but
Be edgy, but
you
not too edgy.
not too edgy. Um, but you have to take ownership that like this is your life to live, and if pursuing one thing is not going to fulfill you, it's not going to help you reach whatever purpose that you feel like you are supposed to be fulfilling. If that requires more than one thing, or more than one thing is required to fulfill that purpose, like maybe my
Yeah.
purpose is not just to start conversations. Maybe my purpose is to come into this industry and show people, like on both sides of the bar, what having bartenders of color, specifically what it's like to have a Black woman on your team, is supposed to look like, without you trying to fit me into the boxes of white supremacist ideals that come to work. Like how we talk about customer service is like the history of hospitality is based in racism. It is based in, if you go back, there weren't white people in hospitality. And then when it became a thing, trademark, then you start to see Black people and people of color pushed out. That's why you have no problem seeing tons of Latinx people in the back of house, as food runners, as cooks, and all of that stuff. But go look at front of house.
Yep.
How many are bartenders? How many are servers? It's like, this is your place in the restaurant industry, is where we can appreciate your work and your labor, because being on the line cooking in a restaurant, you're talking about a 12-hour shift, a 14-hour shift, and you're willing to do that because you need the money. But the real money is made in front of the house, but we don't make space for those people. So maybe I'm supposed to do, by starting important conversations in this one vein, I'm able to push conversations forward in this other area. Maybe that, hopefully, because I feel like hospitality, we as a industry, we're having very important conversations and prioritizing these things, that'll have a far-reaching impact. When we talk about, minimum wage, minimal livable wage, we're talking about a lot of fast food workers. They're still part of service. Like we're it's not all about the Michelin star restaurants. Servers and bartenders make the minimum required hourly because we're tipped. But like, if I didn't have to worry about, you know, making sure that you tip me 20%, the way we talk about customer service would change. We would get back to, the customer's not always right. Like nobody wants to
Like
work in
your
an
dignity
environment.
and your humanity matters too.
Yeah. But
it doesn't, because the customer is always right. And it's always about the customer's experience, even when the customer is being like a racist asshole.
And thinking about, who traditionally were customers, like you just have to start to pull apart, like we weren't able to go into the same shops. We have been, as people of color, we have been reduced to subpar service. But the expectation of excellent, flawless service is something that white people have come to expect. And now we've integrated the industry again, and not had to address the underlying racist, classist, sexist, ableist, etc. Problems that exist in how we present. And it's called service. Like, it's service, not servitude, but how we force bartenders to show up, not realizing that at the intersection of being a woman and a person of color, how somebody's interacting with me is going to be fundamentally different because of those things. Yeah. So, but I can't be limited to be afraid that this person's gonna be like, oh, I can't keep up with you. My family is fucking golden for that. Like, if I had $1 for every time one of those motherfuckers said that to me, rich bitch. I'd be able to be my own boss.
Money bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something you said there, and I lost what it sparked in my brain. I just had it in my brain, and I lost what it was. Fudge-tastic.
Well, do you have any other parting thoughts as we wrap this up?
Oh, now I remember what it was.
Bam.
That your, you know, like maybe you were talking about your purpose, and like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, okay, so like having different things that you're passionate about, it doesn't necessarily mean that like you're purposeless or that you are unfocused. Like me, I have one common mission. Like I have one common thing that feeds through everything that I do, whether I'm writing or I'm doing my podcast or we're doing this show or I'm working in film or things like that. My one common thing is that I am challenging and changing oppressive power dynamics and systems by changing the narratives around Blackness and inspiring and igniting Black people into their power to create change. I am a catalyzer for Black power that creates change. Also, I get to have some Black power that creates change. And so that feeds into everything. It's like the films that I want to make are about changing the narratives around Blackness. They're showing Black people in a different way. My podcast is literally about changing the narratives around Blackness and talking about being Black. This show is all about the pursuit of Black excellence, you know? And so there's something for me that feeds through everything that I do. And it doesn't mean that like, oh, I can't do anything. I can't go to the gym because that's not about changing the narrative around Blackness. Like, it's not necessarily what that means, but it just means that like the things that I'm passionate about, for me, I do have a common thread that is tied to all of them, and that is something that fuels me through all of it. So you know, be don't buy into like the narratives that people say. All about narratives. Don't buy into the
You're right.
stories and the things that people say about you or where you're at or what it says about you that you're into different things. It means that you're a very passionate person and you're probably doing things that are really trying to move you further and further towards your purpose.
Tight. I think that is the perfect place to wrap up that conversation and transition into our one thing for this week. Um,
You start.
yeah, I was about to say,
I
since
had
you
one
just
and I
finished.
lost it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one and I lost it,
You
but
had one
yeah.
thing.
I had one thing.
So my one thing 100% ties into this conversation of just start. Done is better than perfect. I heard that for the first time a couple of years ago. Um, and it started to take root in me. It didn't, I don't even think I'm finished with understanding how deeply that goes. Um, because like I am in transition, hardcore. Like I'm moving to Baltimore. The first episode of this show, I was in Baltimore, and the
Yep.
last two were shot at my old apartment that I'm not in anymore. And like this one is being shot in a guest bedroom. Like,
Yeah.
but it was important for me to start during Black History Month. There are so many things and ways that I've wanted to promote the show and engage with the show that because I'm in transition, instead of internalizing as failures to execute, I have just been like, showing up every Friday to record the show is the one thing you have to do.
Yeah.
Everything
Pause.
else.
Your mic is hitting your zipper.
Trying to
It's like,
get deep. And you
there we
want
go.
clickety clack.
Clickety clack. Listen to the words, not the clickety clack.
But just freeing myself from, you have to get this, that, and the third ready, and like branding and all this, because with an online business background, like I am cognizant of like how to promote, how to get more eyes on the show, and I'm like, the show is important for a reason. It's because, as previously stated, I want to start these important conversations and have them because I'm better having important conversations. So if all I can do is make sure that we are live around 2 p.m. Eastern, like that's fine. That is enough. When I am moved in and like not living out of suitcases and shit, and also not having to stress about moving an entire apartment. What am I keeping? What am I throwing? Like there was just so much more on my brain that I've had to like mute conversations that I'm in because I just don't have the bandwidth. So I am giving myself permission to be proud that like we have from the day that we launched the show, we have shown up and there has been a show. So my one thing is just start. Um, done is better than perfect. Like I'm talking about this pop up I want to do. Of course, like logistically, I'm gonna do that. Like I have to show up, but for something that is, you know, like it's not perfect yet. But I said I want to do this pop up. I am going to do this pop up. Like even the way I'm talking about it is I'm gonna do this pop up. So if that means I can't do it with this event that I would like to do it with in May, then that means that I'm gonna have to find a way to do it without that in June or July. But it's important for me to just start, to ask the questions, gather the information, and reach out to people. Like I'm still in the gathering of information phase, but I've already asked other people who want to bartend. Do you want to bartend? Like people I want to work with, people I want this to also be a platform building situation for them because I value them and I see their worth and I see their hard work and their drive to reach out to them. I don't have a budget yet. I don't have sponsors yet, but do you want to do this event? Because that to me makes it more real. And that makes me have to show up in my my power instead of my fear. Because I'm not pussyfooting around. I'm talking about this idea. I'm saying I'm gonna do this pop-up. I'm going to do this show. Regardless of how it gets posted, if it makes it to Patreon, all of that stuff is important eventually. But right now, and especially knowing how I am, showing up to do the show is the most important thing. And while everything else is imperfect, but the show gets done. And that's the important thing. So start where you are with what you got and go from there. That's my one thing.
I dig it. I dig it. So I thought of my one thing, and now I want to give a different one because the one was about like community and unity and relying on other people. But and this is something that is relative, but is related.
It's related.
But we didn't. I'm having a problem today. What is going on?
It's a day,
It's something
girl.
that is related. It's relevant. I was combining those two words. It's relevant. But we didn't talk about is to start scrap the idea that there's competition. And like there is in like when you're in athletics, there's competition and there is competition to an extent, but like the way that we've been taught to think of competition is like, oh, I got to make sure I do better than them. And let me see how I can and let me see how I can make them do worse, instead of like, oh, girl, you're doing good. Let's both rise up. Like,
yes,
you know, and so the way we've been taught to think about competition is like, there's only one seat at the table and I got to get mine.
yes.
And in fact, if we actually keep uplifting each other, they're gonna have to be more seats at the table. Like people are gonna get moved out, or we're just gonna be building our own table. So whatever your project is, the problem with thinking about things or other people as competition is that it can stop you from reaching out to them. It can stop you from saying, hey, I want to learn from you, or hey, I'd love for you to be part of this. It can stop you from doing that instead of actually coming together in community and in unity with other Black people or people, but you know, it's all about Blackness here, with other Black people to uplift whatever it is that you're creating. You know, and that is so much more powerful than like, oh no, I'm not gonna include that person, or I'm not gonna talk to that person because they're my competition, or what if they steal my idea, or you know, they're a little bit better than me, I gotta be better than them, and so I can't tell them what's like, all that's bullshit. And actually all of it, I'm not even gonna get into this real hard, but like it's all actually based in white supremacy. And it's a way that white supremacy tries in particular to keep Black people separated from each other and competing against each other. It's one of the best ways to keep whiteness on top is to pit Black people and other POC people against each other from the inside. And so kill that idea that like there's competition, you know, and understand that there is only one you, and you do things your way, and you can get the resources to do things better your way. You know, but that there isn't, you don't have to steal from other people. You don't have to steal other people's ideas. And there isn't really like competition. You don't have to hold yourself back from reaching out to people because, oh, they're your competition. That's that's BS, and it's just going to hold you back. So that actually ties into, you know,
Our whole
relying on other people. Yeah.
That made me think of three quick things. Well, maybe the things aren't quick, but I'm going to talk about them quickly. Crap. You said something that made me think about the Steve Harvey integrity conversation. Um, oh, one seat at the table. I am not willing to get ahead in life at the expense of other people.
Yes.
I am not
That's
willing
white
to do that.
supremacy.
Yeah, basically.
That
And
is the
so
core of white supremacy.
on the Uppity Negress podcast, they're on their Facebook, of course, there was some black dude who was like, see, this is the problem with black people. Y'all want to have integrity and it's making you broke. And I'm like, integrity's not making us broke, bro. That's not how math works. That's not economics. I'm like, and then in that clip, Steve Harvey says something like, the best way to help poor people is not to become one. And I'm like,
that's literally not the best way to help poor people.
If you want to justify that you don't give a fuck about other people and you just want to get yours, that's fucking fine. But don't act like you're doing the rest of us a fucking favor. So
because you're not poor. What? Like
Steve Harvey having money has not helped pay a bill.
No, that hasn't helped. That hasn't helped me in any way.
Shit.
Especially because some of the stuff he says, I'm like, so we just gonna keep perpetuating some of this hoteppy shit. Cool. Thanks.
So that's the thing about the seat at the table and like having that closed hand. You can't receive if your fists are closed. Like, so don't think that you have to throw other people on the bus and there's not space for more than one of you. Of course, my brain is like, because I was like, quick. You said something. I don't remember. I can't remember. The Steve Harvey one like just annoys me fundamentally. Like it just scratches at my moral compass. But
yeah, he aggravates me.
I wish I could remember. If I remember, I'm gonna put it on IG Live and be like, "This is what Kristin was talking about." Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I'm gonna go back and watch it. Like, that's what it was.
You can put it in the comments.
Yeah. So everybody.
So we got one golden nugget. We got one golden nugget about the integrity that you're not willing. You said you're not willing to get ahead at the expense of other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, be cool like us.
Yeah. Don't be a ball of dicks about it.
Don't be a dick about it.
But yeah, if y'all have any comments or questions or anything about the conversation today, about what it's like to be multi-passionate, what it's like to the challenges, the joys, we would love to hear. Go ahead and drop it on the video. We're going to share this out. So if you could also share this out so people who can benefit from this conversation can see it, get to them. You are also a steward of getting information around. You can follow the show on Instagram, Pursuing Black Excellence, at Pursuing Black Excellence. Also like the Facebook page, In Pursuit of Black Excellence. And Kristin, where can we find you?
You can find me on the Instagrams at Kristin Iris.
You can find me.
Yes. You could find me on Twitter too, but don't. There's not a lot going on over there.
It's not worth your time.
But yeah, Kristin Iris on Instagram. You can also visit my website, KristinIris.com, or my podcast, Melanated Rising, which is on iTunes and Spotify. And if y'all could go and help me out on my Patreon, I could get on some other platforms. So,
word. Thank you, Desiree. She said we had good points.
Yes, thank you, Desiree. I just saw that.
Yeah, we try. We can only try.
I moved the comments out of the way, and then I was like, oh look, there are some comments.
But yeah, so find us, follow us, interact with us, let us know your feels. And if there's a particular topic you want us to cover or chat about, let us know that too. Yeah, we're down. I'm down. I'm open-minded, mostly. So anything else? Nope, I'm good. Anything else? There is this time next week, I should hopefully be in Baltimore. And hopefully not going anywhere for a while after that. Because I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. I'm not tired. I'm tired.
Yeah. Next
So,
week I will be actually, yeah, the first next week, Friday, I will be starting my program. Wham
giggity.
blam! Black creatives, baby.
Yes, it's a very exciting time, life and times right now. All right,
Yes.
y'all, we are going to get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and we will be in touch. All right. I'll see you later at my going
Yes.
away party that
Yes,
I'm
I'll see you
super
tonight.
excited about. So, all right. Bye, y'all.